Welcome, listeners of Illusion, to Temporal Discussion, the episode-by-episode Nightmare Retrospective podcast. I'm Martin Harder, and I'll be hurt if you walk away.
And I'm Marti Odoni, and I'm just going for a walk. Back in a minute.
We're just about to dive into Series 3 of The Greater Game. Before we do, in a format we lovingly distilled from Under Consultation, the Games Master podcast.
Stolen, you mean?
We're going to take time to look at some of the number one singles and movies that we missed in the off-season. We'll start with the singles. There are some good songs, but there's some absolute dross as well.
In all truth, 88 to 89 is actually one of my favourite years for music. It may just be because that was my early teens, and so that's when I'm at my optimum pop music interested stage.
Big Jason Donovan fan, were you?
I said music. You've just punctured me completely there with that remark. This was your idea, this thing, okay? Immediately after Nightmare ended, it was Christmas. I think we've rather done Mistletoe and Wine to death, which is exactly what it deserves. So basically, we're looking at the new year 1989 for the first time, aren't we?
On the 1st of January.
Things actually managed to get even worse.
Especially for you.
It was a very popular song back in the day, made more popular, obviously, by the presence of Jason and Kylie, who were both still on, I think, were they still on Neighbours at the time? Probably
not, actually, because they wouldn't really have had time to keep appearing on it. Really embarrassingly, and it really does not reflect well on the British public, it actually stayed top of the charts for 3 whole weeks!
It was finally usurped by
Something's got a hold of my heart.
by Mark Almond and Gene Pitney.
Yeah, that's actually a really good song. I'm actually very fond of that one. That's almost an anthem at times.
Yeah, it was number one for almost a month, wasn't it?
It is actually a very good song. And Almond and Pitney's voices actually worked really well together. That's made it a really great move. Thank goodness the British public had suddenly come back to their senses at the end of January.
Yeah, it didn't last long though, did it? After that we had Belfast Child by Simple Minds, which is a good song.
I do love that slightly tripped out feel you often get from Simple Minds songs. It actually has the effect on people listening to it that the band name actually means, because you do actually find yourself slightly tripping out, man. Just slightly tripping out.
You're avoiding moving on, aren't you?
Yes, I've got to find more and more things to talk about with Simple Minds, just to delay the inevitable, because Jason bloody Donovan comes back at the beginning of March.
Too many broken hearts in the world. There's too many dreams can be broken in two. Too many broken hearts in the world. So I won't give up the fight for you.
Too many broken hearts.
Nothing personal. Could just say nothing personal, Jason. If for some reason I can't imagine you're listening, but you cannot sing.
I wouldn't go as far as to say as he can't sing, but his songs are just so generic.
Yes. At the time, the big producers in Britain were Stock Aitken and Waterman, and the thing that everybody hated most of all about them was that every single song, if you actually listen to it, the backbeat is always exactly the same. And people began to realise, actually, they're just putting together identikit songs here and re-releasing them with different artists.
And they made a ton of money out of it.
Yeah. The main reason it was so successful, yes, they sold quite a lot of copies, but also because they're doing identikit music, it's really cheap to make. You don't really have to pay the composer money for it because there isn't one. All they're doing is just putting the same backbeat, slightly different rhythm tracks in between the backbeat and the voice, and then they can literally get the song cut within about 3 hours.
But the thing is, it doesn't get much better, because on the 19th of March we had by Madonna.
Actually, I quite like a Prayer. It's not one of her best ones, but I really like the chorus that you get in the background.
So we had that for a couple of weeks, and then on the 9th of April we had Eternal Flame by The Bangles.
Close your eyes, give me your hand, darling. Do you feel my heart beating? Do you understand? Do you feel the same? Am I only dreaming? Is this burning an eternal flame?
There's a a bit out of character for them to do something quite like that. They're usually doing really crude racial stereotypes about Egyptians in their songs, but Eternal Flame is actually a rather nice anthem.
I quite like Eternal Flame.
Yeah, and then it all goes to pot about a month later.
It's one of her better songs, I would say. But
what does that say about the rest of them? What does that say about I Should Be So Lucky? It's another one of those ones, actually, I probably wouldn't mind it at all if only it was somebody else doing it.
At least Hand on Your Heart was only #1 for a week.
For a very sad reason. 14th, it's just supplanted by a remake of Ferry Cross the Mersey.
Life goes on day after day. Hearts torn in every way. So ferry across the Mersey, 'cause this land's the place I love, and here I'll stay.
The reason why Ferry Cross the Mersey was remade is a very sad one, because a month earlier was the Hillsborough disaster, in which it's now 97 victims. It used to be 96 for many years, but there was a terrible crowd crush at the Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield on the 15th of April 1989. And the Ferry Cross the Mersey was remade to support the survivors and the families of the victims. Jerry Marsden remade it with the help of Paul McCartney, Holly Johnson, and the Christians. And let's give them their due. Stock Aitken and Waterman helped out with it to create a charity single, so give them kudos for that.
It's a very good version. Ferry Cross the Mersey is such a great song.
You'd think, given that it involved Liverpool fans, you might have thought that they should have actually done You'll Never Walk Alone. But the thing was, 4 years earlier, there'd been that dreadful fire at Bradford City's stadium, which took over 50 lives. And they actually did a reworking of You'll Never Walk Alone as a charity single in support of the survivors of that. It's just as well that safety at football grounds has very much improved since that time, because you get the feeling the way things were going at that point, they were going to run out of songs. In the aftermath of Hillsborough, Lord Justice Peter Taylor did a full in-depth investigation into the health of British sports grounds. And one of the things that he demanded was that stadiums above 10,000 capacity must become all-seater. That immediately removes the danger of crushing that can happen on terraces. So, yes, it was in response to that. But it's just as well, because there were 3 previous disasters in just 18 years that affected British football. There was the Ibrox disaster in Glasgow in 71, the Bradford fire in 1985, and then the Heysel disaster was just a couple of weeks after Bradford. And every single time, nothing was done across the country to resolve safety issues at football grounds. It was only after Hillsborough caused the highest death toll in stadium tragedy history in Britain that somebody finally went and did something in depth about it. And as I say, just as well they did. But we are a very slow country to learn. But anyway, that's the really, really deep, dark bits out of the way.
So on the 4th of June, we have Sealed with a Kiss by Jason Donovan. And then
Casper the Key, come back, please. Sorry.
And on the 18th of June...
Back to life, back to reality, back to life, back to reality, back to life, back to reality, back to the here and now, yeah.
worldwide, soul to soul.
It was in the charts in the week that I moved to Glasgow from Devon, and I was suffering from the most horrendous culture shock at that point. But this song hit #1 in the charts, exactly the right time for me. And so I was playing it a lot in our pokey little new flat in Bears Den on the north edge of Glasgow. And that was basically what got me through that summer of trying to adjust to living a Glaswegian life. That's as big a leap as you can get living in the UK, going from living in a country town in Devon to living in one of the biggest cities in Britain. It took a bit of adjusting to that, and Soul to Soul, love it.
And so after that, on the 16th of July, we had Sonia with Never...
This was another. This was basically one
Can
of
you
Kylie's.
let me say the title of the song?
No!
We had Sonia with You'll Never Stop Me Loving You.
This is the epitome of what I was saying earlier about Stock Aitken and Waterman. They basically just do the same backbeat. And You'll Never Stop Me Loving You is essentially just one of Kylie's rejects. I don't like to say it because Sonia genuinely is, from all indications, she genuinely is a lovely lady.
Yeah, I always had a bit of a crush on her.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but she genuinely has got a heart of gold by all indications. In terms of being a pop star, she really was just a poor man's Kylie. And a lot of the time, a lot of her songs seem to be the ones that you got the feeling Kylie had rejected. Somehow this one got to #1, so maybe that's Kylie's mistake. But it is just another generic SAW. It really is just the same backbeat with a different singer singing different lyrics.
And moving on from that, on the 30th of July, 1989.
Come on, everybody! Come on, everybody!
I'm going to admit something here. I can't remember Swing the Mood at all.
Can you not?
I can't, no. I genuinely can't.
You have to listen to Swing the Mood.
Oh, okay. Okay. I've never been a fan of Jive Bunny, so I didn't really want to look it up.
I love Swing the Mood. I unashamedly love Swing the Mood.
Swing the Mood. Jive Bunny pops up automatically in the drop down. So a lot of people. For some reason, there's a picture of Elvis Presley doing the Jailhouse Rock as the freeze frame, but let me just try this out and see what happens. Okay, I can't tell whether this is actually supposed to be part of the track or if it's just giving little segments from lots of different things that include Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers. But it says Glenn Miller in the Mood, Billy Haley and his comments of Rock Around the Clock, Billy Haley and his comments of Rock a Beat and Boogie, the Everly Brothers, Wake Up Little Susie. Loads of songs that I do know, but from a completely different era. Is that actually supposed to be what it is?
Yeah.
So it's basically just a clip show of the 1950s rock scene. That's what it is.
Basically.
Right, okay.
It's brilliant.
Okay. What you actually mean is those songs from the 1950s were brilliant, and they've just hitched a lift on them.
Done a very good mix of it. So I'm
They-
eating some
Yeah,
chocolate mini
I can
rolls.
tell. Basically, what we have to say is this is a clip show of the 1950s rock music, and Jive Bunny is taking the credit for other people's really good songs.
No.
Yeah,
No, he's a mixer.
yeah.
It's a mix. It says in the name Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers. They take other clips from different songs and mix them.
Yeah, and then take the credit for it. You're just saying the same thing in different words, man.
Better than what follows, anyway.
To be perfectly honest, actually, no, it isn't. There's no more Jason Donovan or Kylie Minogue after this. We got them out of the way. Hallelujah.
Yeah, but instead we got Black Box, Ride on Time.
I actually quite like Ride on Time.
Didn't they screw over the singer or something?
Yes, they did. I'm not in any way commenting on their morals. What happened was that some of the legal issues. There's more than one legal issue over it. In fact, those things are undoubtedly extremely immoral, extremely corrupt practices, and the band should be ashamed of themselves. But the actual song, I actually quite like.
Why? It's 3 words.
I don't know. I must admit, I don't know. I really don't know. But I did actually rather enjoy. I still quite enjoy listening to it today. Not as much.
It's literally like 3 words long. It's like right on time.
No, it isn't.
Right on time.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. They also say "gotta get up" quite a lot as well. So it's 6. So it's 6 words. So nah.
This song is
But, at least it's their work. At least it's their work. At least they're not stealing somebody else's and then pasting it into a clip show and claiming that that's their single.
But I thought they were
on
stealing
the
someone
issue-
else's work. I thought that was a part of the lawsuit.
Well, that's what they claimed. Yeah, but the point is they made the music themselves rather than just taking recordings of somebody else and then pasting it.
At least
into
Jive Bunny
something.
credited the other people.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But I'd say on a moral level, both songs are about the same, quite honestly.
But Ride on Time was number 1 at the time of the first episode of Nightmare, Series 3.
It was at the top of the charts for about 5 weeks. Yeah, in fact, 6 weeks. It was the 15th of October when it was finally knocked off the top spot.
And if you'd like to listen to any of the songs we talked about today, there'll be a link to a Spotify playlist in the description. Please bear in mind that the version of Ferry Cross the Mersey on the playlist is the 1997 remaster of the original, as the version that we talk about on the podcast isn't available on Spotify. And so we move on to the box office. Now, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was number 1 when we left off, starring Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd and Joanna Cassidy.
Oh, did it? I'm pretty sure you haven't got into this so far. Do tell me more. Trista Bites, come back, please. Tell us more about Framed Roger Rabbit.
Would you rather talk about Moonwalker?
He comes from a place beyond the stars to take them to a world beyond their dreams. From his soul comes the music. From his heart comes the beat. Now, from the imagination of Michael Jackson comes a movie like no other.
Let's talk about Who Framed Roger the Rabbit, shall we?
No matter what you think of Michael Jackson as a person, so the thing like this is my thing with Moonwalker. Beginning is shit, middle is shit. Then there's that Smooth Criminal sequence, which is the greatest bloody music video I've ever seen.
True.
And then the ending is shit. It's just weird.
Let's just play Smooth Criminal, which I certainly have no objection to. I think that is one of Jackson's better songs. Let's just play Smooth Criminal and cut out the rest of it. That's really what Michael Jackson should do. Just sing songs and try not to do anything else at all.
It's just really funny though. They got that sequence for the song "Leave Me Alone," and he's singing "Just leave me alone." He's doing I want to be left alone. Just leave me be. And then the rest of the film is just like, look at me, I'm Michael Jackson. It's the poster child for vanity pieces.
Yeah, this is the whole thing. If you really want to be left alone and you don't want anybody to be micro-analyzing you, why are you making a film at all?
Yeah.
Why do you make music videos? Why do you release pop songs? Why not just go live on a farm somewhere and, tend flocks of sheep? So what was it was the 30th of December 88 that it got to the top, and it was gone a week later.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
Although,
are you actually going to say bad stuff about Young Guns?
6 reasons why the West was wild.
No one's fool enough to go in after Murphy's people.
Emilio Estevez.
I'm in. Deputize them.
Kiefer Sutherland.
You must like trouble.
Trouble? You think I look like trouble? I'm a poet. McSween, those are just boys. Ain't one of them over 21. Murphy's men will shred them in half within a day.
Casey Shimashko.
I'm a pugilist. Court adjourned.
Dermot Mulroney.
He ain't all there, is he?
Lou Diamond Phillips.
My vision told me we're headed for blood.
Charlie Sheen.
We got warrants for the law! You were supposed to serve 11 warrants and expose the ring. Instead, you went out and you went on the warpath. The governor's revoked your deputization powers. You're now wanted by the legitimate law as well as those outside the law. You're being hunted by troops.
I like these odds.
Young Guns.
No. I don't remember it at all.
Young Guns is one of my favourite films. I won't go as into it as I did with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Directed by Christopher Kane, starring Emilio Estevez as Billy the Kid, along with Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Lou Diamond Phillips, and Terence Stamp as John Tunstall, and tells the story of the Lincoln County regulators and the murder of John Tunstall by the Murphy Gang and what happened afterwards. It's the story of Billy the Kid, essentially.
Right, okay.
Good film, I think, personally.
I'll have to try and find it and watch it. It doesn't ring any bells for me at all, sorry.
The sequel is better. The sequel was released in the early 90s and tells the story of Bushy Bill Roberts, who claimed to be Billy the Kid, and was identified as Billy the Kid by a number of his surviving friends.
It was only top for 1 week.
We should say we're going by the weekend box office here, so there may be some leeway either side.
1989 was actually quite a big year for films, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
There was Ghostbusters 2, there was Batman, there were the Back to the Futures 2 and 3. There was a lot of big stuff going on that year. Interestingly, some of them aren't even on the list here, are they?
Well, yeah, because they don't take place in the off-season.
True.
So after Young Guns, we had Red Heat on the 13th of January 1989 with Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Belushi and Peter Boyle, and it was directed by Walter Hill. I have no love for this film whatsoever. I only saw it recently and I've already forgotten most of what it was about.
No memory of this one either. Sorry, totally gone for me. But that was only top for 1 week as well.
And the next one's one I haven't seen. On the 20th of January 1989, we've got Cocktail with Tom Cruise, obviously, Brian Brown and Elizabeth Shue, directed by Roger Donaldson.
In 1 square mile of this saloon lies the greatest concentration of wealth in the world.
Yes. But how was a bartender gonna get his hands on any of it?
This is the big time. Are you ready for the big time, young Mr. Flanagan?
I think I can handle it.
This isn't what I ordered. Wine! Get your act together!
A white wine! All right. Now, what was it that you ordered? A martini! What's in that?
There are many ways to fool a customer. You will learn them all.
Yes, Obi-Wan.
With acting talent of the magnitude of Tom Cruise and Elizabeth Shue, I imagine this one is also very forgettable, but not for me because I've never seen it either.
After that, on the 3rd of February 1989, little film, might have heard of it.
It's Christmas Eve in L.A.
California.
Is Daddy coming home soon? Well, we'll see what Santa and Mommy can do, okay?
A New York cop, John McClane, has come to see his wife.
I missed you.
Instead, he's going to have to save her.
Sit down.
Within this skyscraper high above the city, 12 terrorists have declared war.
They're about to be taught a lesson in the real use of power.
They're as brilliant
because I am interested in the $640 million in your vault.
As they are ruthless.
And I'm telling you, you're just going to have to kill me. Okay. We do it the hard way.
Now, the last thing McClane wants.
Think, damn it, think.
Is to be a hero.
Where's Holly? Hey, Tucker! Where?
But he doesn't have a choice.
What does he think he's doing?
Job.
They have already killed 1 hostage.
This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Lady, do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
He's inside? Who is he?
Someone here inside.
Who are you then? You are most troublesome for a security guard.
Sorry, wrong guess, huh? Would you like to go for double jeopardy?
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
But you just destroyed a building. And I am in charge of this situation. Well, I got some bad news for you. From up here, that look like you're in charge of Jack.
He is alone, he is tired, and he hasn't seen dipping squat from anybody down here.
Hey, pal, how you feeling? All things being equal, I'd rather be in Philadelphia. I want blood. And you have it.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
He's an easy guy to like.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
And a hard man to kill. Bruce Willis. Die Hard.
Die Hard. Oh, thank God, we got to a film that I've actually heard of. Not that I particularly like it, not that I particularly like Bruce Willis, but it does have Alan Rickman in it. And any film that's got Alan Rickman in it automatically has something good about it.
Die Hard is actually based on a book, which is part of a series of books called the Detective series. The first one being The Detective, and the one that Die Hard is based on is called Nothing Lasts Forever. Now, there was a film of the original book, The Detective, starring Frank Sinatra. And because of Frank's contract with that film, when they made Die Hard, they were contractually obliged to offer him the role of John McClane. And thankfully, he turned it down.
In 1989. Is that 30 or 40 years past the time that Sinatra was the right age to play the role? Yeah.
Before the role was offered to Bruce Willis, it was offered to Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Clint Eastwood, Mel Gibson, James Caan, Rich Gere, and many, many more people. In fact, Bruce Willis was one of the last people on their list because he wasn't an action star at the time. He was a comedy star.
He was mainly known for moonlighting on US TV. He was, I would say, probably miscast in light of that. But it turned out to be one of those occasional miracles that happen where someone gets cast against type and actually works way, way better than it should do. So sometimes going against the grain with casting actually turns out to be a moment of inspiration.
And of course, we can't talk about Die Hard without answering that age-old question: is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
People still asking that question.
Yes.
It's a movie, and a lot of people do genuinely watch it at Christmas. They often get DVD or Blu-ray of it at Christmas.
It takes place at Christmas.
Is Batman Returns a Christmas movie then?
Yes, for the same reason.
Is that?
Yeah.
I never hear people describing it as one.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Exactly the same reason.
All right. Yes, it is
Christmas
then.
features heavily in the plot. Now I have a machine gun.
Okay. Yes, it is then.
There we go. Definitive answer. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Moving on. So we got a bit of a tonal shift in our next movie because on the 10th of February we got The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad, directed by David Zucker, starring Leslie Nielsen.
I love The Naked Gun and I love Police Squad. I love them. I love Leslie Nielsen. I think Priscilla Presley, who'd never done any comedy before in her life, was brilliant. Ricardo Montalban is fantastic as the villain. O.J. Simpson wasn't yet a villain, but my goodness, didn't he turn out to be later?
Did you know O.J. Simpson was turned down for the role of the Terminator because he wasn't believable as a killer?
You know what? I'm pretty sure that's actually an urban myth, but I still believe it's true.
I said it, so it's fact.
Okay, all right.
Hello, listeners of Illusion. Whilst I always hate to give Marti Odoni credit, he is right in this case. It is an urban myth. So you say that Priscilla Presley wasn't known for doing comedy, but funnily enough, at the time, nor was Leslie Nielsen.
That's true as well. He was the captain in the Poseidon Adventure. That was probably what he was most famous for at that time. He was very, very much a straight-up drama actor. But he had such a perfect voice for doing deadpan that actually, if you think about it, it's an obvious thing to translate to a comedy like this. He'd also done Airplane, was when he first really started to break into the comedy world, and with Police Squad as well. But throughout the 70s, he was mainly known as a drama actor. I'd say by 1989, he was recognised as a comedy actor.
He'd also had quite a sinister turn in one of the better stories in the Creepshow anthology film as well. He got to kill Tom Selleck.
Yes, there's some wonderful jokes in all of the Naked Gun films, so they're terrific.
Naked Gun 33 and a third, though, has problems. Seen from a modern point of view, there are certain jokes in 33 and a third especially that are just wrong. I have the same problems with Naked Gun 33 and a third that I do with the original Ace Ventura, and for the same reasons.
Okay, go ahead.
Very transphobic.
Yes, I would agree. Yes.
We're looking at it from modern points of view. At the time, I watched it and I didn't see anything wrong with it. Now I've grown as a person, I understand the problems.
Yeah. It's also much simply that we're living in what is supposed to be more enlightened times. I sometimes question what they are, but certainly we're more aware of minority issues now than we were then. There are iffy jokes in all three of the films, really. There's definitely a tone of homophobia in some of the jokes in the second film. You know, there's points where the character Richard Griffiths is bordering on a carry-on film character. You've got to look at each of them with certain filters switched on. in order to enjoy it, because otherwise some of the jokes will definitely offend. But in its time and in its place, I think the Naked Gun films were wonderful. I think they were hilarious. They were inspired.
Following on from The Naked Gun, on the 3rd of March 1989, we have Rain Man, directed by Barry Levinson, starring Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise, and Valeria Golino. I have issues with this film.
So do I.
Let's just start by saying, yeah, it kind of brought autism more into the mainstream, and in a way that is a good thing. But as someone who works with neurodivergent people and is neurodivergent myself, it also causes a lot of problems.
Yes. Looking at it as a film, I actually find it remarkably dull at times, given how much praise it got in its own year. It's surprisingly boring when you actually sit through it. I do give praise for Dustin Hoffman for what he was trying to do, but as you say, the way it was scripted, I think one of the problems is it's putting autism in a very particular box.
Yeah.
And anybody whose behavior outside of that box, as a result of the film, society assumes they can't be autistic. Actually, there's all sorts of other behavior that can also still be portrayed by autistic people. That's probably one of the really, really serious issues of the film. As you say, given the standards of the time and what they were trying to do, you have to applaud them for the effort. But if they were to make it today, it would be a lot less clumsy, I think.
Yeah, it has become the stereotype for autism.
Basically, what it's saying is that autists are all sort of fully grown children, and that isn't right. There's a very wide spectrum of characteristics in autism, and some of them are so slight that they're barely detectable from routine behavior from people who haven't got autism. It can actually be quite hard to pick up on a lot of the time. The problem with this is Hoffman is so completely down there all the way through. It makes people think autism is something that people hit over the head with. It's a lot subtler than that. There's a massive gradation of behavior, and Rain Man does not convey that at all.
So we had a bit more levity after that, because on the 17th of March we had Twins, directed by Ivan Reitman, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito, and Kelly Preston.
In a secret lab, somewhere in the Western Hemisphere, the perfect human specimen has been born. He has the strength of 10 men and the wisdom of 20. He also has a twin brother.
I have a brother?
Oh my goodness, are you looking good?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Born to be bad.
And Danny DeVito
Way to go, Mom.
are twins.
My name is Julius. I'm your twin brother.
Obviously. The moment I sat down, I thought I was looking into a mirror.
It's an okay movie.
It's quite enjoyable. It's the first of the Schwarzenegger-DeVito partnerships. They did Junior together about 5 years later, mainly in response to fans of twins demanding they work together again. The partnership is a sort of the extremity of little and large. One of them is literally very, very little. One of them is literally 7'10". One of them is a streetwise, American-wise guy, and the other is an innocent immigrant with a very, very rich Austrian accent. I do enjoy it, and Schwarzenegger, I do sometimes, maybe worry is the wrong word, but I am sometimes a little concerned with Schwarzenegger that people say that he's got a certain gift for comedy. I do sometimes think it's Americans laughing at foreign accents when they say that.
I think it's more that he's not afraid to send himself up.
Possibly. As a person, Schwarzenegger's a lovely fella by all indication. One of his most generous qualities is he will let other people have a laugh at his expense. That may be him, but I do get the feeling that when a lot of people laugh at it, it is actually them just mocking his accent.
Before we move on from talking about twins, I'm just going to send you an IMDb link. I want to know your reaction.
Triplets. Oh my God. Oh no, not Eddie Murphy. Oh, Eddie Murphy makes every film he appears in all about him. The whole point of the DeVito Schwarzenegger thing is they fire off each other surprisingly well. Cram Murphy into the middle of it. Nobody's ever going to actually notice them.
It was going to be Kevin Hart.
Eddie, welcome aboard, my man.
So after Twins, we got Working Girl with Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, and Melanie Griffith, which was directed by Mike Nichols and was #1 on the 31st of March 1989. I haven't seen it. By all means, I've been told it's a good film.
I did watch it about 25 years ago. I don't really remember too much about it. This was basically Harrison Ford when he was probably at the absolute peak of his fame. The same year, he also did Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So he was absolutely at the peak of his fame and popularity.
Next up, we've got The Tall Guy, directed by Mel Smith, starring Jeff Goldblum, Emma Thompson, and Rowan Atkinson. I'd never heard of it.
Thank goodness we've actually got a British film. This really was the dark ages for British cinema. In the 80s and the 90s, British films were almost always TV films. A lot of them were absolutely brilliant TV films, I should stress, but very, very few were ever actually made for cinema. This one actually was made for cinema, and that's a shame because it's not very good. They got Jeff Goldblum in to appeal to the American crowd, and that failed. It's just a rather irritating farce. With an awful lot of very, very predictable jokes in it. And this excruciatingly weird and unappealing comedy sex scene between Jeff Goldblum and Emma Thompson, where they're basically trying to make love on a piano. They start playing a weird kind of symphony with their buttocks.
After that, we've got The Deadpool, directed by Buddy Van Horn, which is one of the best names ever, and starring Clint Eastwood, Patricia Clarkson, and Liam Neeson. I've not seen this. I understand it's one of the Dirty Harry films.
Yes, I think it is.
Next up, we got Betrayed, directed by Costa Gavras.
Costa Gavras.
Thank you. Starring Deborah Winger, Tom Berenger, and John Hurd. Never heard of it. 28th of the 4th, 1989. I was actually in hospital on that day after my sister broke my nose.
I'm just calling up on IMDb now to see if there's anything interesting about it that we can talk about. Picture of Deborah Winger and I think it's Tom Berenger in a darkened room together. Him resting his chin on her in an entirely non-suggestive way.
Oh, it's got John Marnie in it. Next up, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, directed by Rennie Harlin, starring John Beckman, Keisha Brackle, and Brooke Bundy. Now, I am a huge fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I have to say this film is absolute.
If they put a K at the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street, I would probably love it. But that's that. If they forgot to do it, and that's just totally
if they'd put a K on it, I would set up a what's the word? I can't remember.
A website.
Brain.
A podcast?
Not prescription. When you get lots of signatures.
Petition.
I would set up a petition to have it removed because I would not have this film associated with Nightmare. The fact that it follows one of the best films in the series just makes it even worse. It is absolute utter.
Mr. H, could you stop holding back, please, and tell us what you really feel? Why do you need yet another Nightmare on Elm Street?
Why can't we just skip right to part 7? Because that one actually did something different and interesting.
Why can't we just skip all of them?
Have you seen part 7?
No, I don't think I even got as far as part 3. As far as I was concerned, the story was told. Why do you need to keep doing them?
Part 3 is genuinely quite good. It's got some of the most inventive deaths in the series. But part 7 takes place in the quote-unquote real world, where Freddy Krueger has found a way to escape from the films and is stalking the actors from the original film.
That's an original idea, at least.
It's brilliant, and it's genuinely quite frightening in places. Until the ending, when it all goes a bit silly. But other than that, yeah. Just skip all the rest and go to part 7.
Well, that's a good compromise.
That's what it should be. 1, 2's okay, 3, and then 7.
Most guys will hit 1, 2, 3, and then go to 7 and set up camp.
There's such a thing as too much of a good thing. That's assuming Nightmare on Elm Street really is a good thing.
7. 7. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7.
Next up, we have Mississippi Burning, directed by Alan Parker and starring Gene Hackman, Willem Dafoe, and Frances McDormand.
I am sick and tired of going to the funerals of black men who have been murdered by white men.
They are powerless against us if every single Anglo-Saxon Christian one of us stands together.
The rest of America don't see it that way, Mr. Mayor.
The rest of America don't mean a damn thing. You in Mississippi now.
You had us scared to death, man.
Don't you call me man, boy.
Did it ever occur to them they're gonna end up dead?
The moment those 3 kids disappeared, it was news.
The moment the 3 civil rights workers disappeared, it was news.
Somebody's called right in the stand. Now get out of here.
You'd kill Frank? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't give it no more thought than wringing a cat's neck.
Hey,
These people crawled out of a sewer, Mr. Ward!
We do not accept Jews because they reject Christ. We do not accept Papists because they bow to a Roman dictator. We do not accept Turks, Orientals, nor Negroes.
They're not killers. That's the difference between them and us.
That's the difference between them and you. Did you smile when the bulldozer ran over the black kid's body?
We're here to protect Anglo-Saxon democracy and the American way.
What's wrong with these people?
1964, when America was at war with itself.
It's another one that I saw a long time ago. I do remember enjoying it, but I can't really remember too many of the details. One thing I do remember is Gene Hackman is awesome in it. He usually is. But by this stage of his career, he was often descending into self-parody, but he's definitely playing it straight here.
That was number 1 from the 12th of May until the 19th of May.
Be careful how you pronounce this next title. It's Beaches, starring Bette Midler, Barbara Hershey, John Hurd, and directed by Gary Marshall.
I've seen it. I don't remember it.
Which again suggests it's not very good.
Apparently, it's very good.
I quite like Bette Midler, so there's a chance.
There was a Broadway musical of it. Oh my God. Wait, you haven't seen it. I have seen it, but I don't remember it. We found our new Untouchables.
Oh, no. You're quite right. You're quite right.
Moving on is Warlock, directed by Steve Miner and starring Julian Sands, Laurie Singer, and Richard E. Grant.
Do you know Round the Horn?
Yes.
Every time I see the name Julian Sands as an actor, I just immediately start thinking Julian and Sandy.
Oh, hello, it's Mr. Orna Bonatavario again.
Hello, anybody there?
Oh, hello, I'm Julian. This is my friend Sandy.
Hello. Thank you. Yes, we're Boner Books. We're just filling in as book publishers. Normally, if you'll forgive the expression, we're actors by trade.
Trade's been a bit rough lately, hasn't it? So, had to take what we could get.
Take whatever we could get, you see. We've done very well, haven't we? I mean, here's our spring list.
Oh, yes.
Spring list.
Yes. You're certainly going for the lurid covers.
You've got to. You've got to. And that's what sells books, isn't it?
Sells.
And then, of course, you've got your racy flyleaf. Jewel writes those, don't you, Jewel?
Yes,
he
I
writes
do.
them all. Go on, show him your blurb. Show him it. Go on. Very good.
Well, here's one I've just done.
Just done this one?
Proud, haughty, untamed, many possessed her, but none could break her restless spirit. Who was the man with the whip?
Good heavens, what book's that for?
Black Beauty.
My dad's got me a tape of 4 episodes of Round the Horn in 1990, so it was already something like 23 years after the series ended. There's now more time has passed since I got those tapes than had passed at the time since the series ended. So I feel old whenever I'm talking about that, even though Round the Horn was a few years before I was even born. As for Warlock, I'm sure I've seen it, but somehow the light bulb is not switching on in my head. Was it a British film? I can't remember. It should be with a name like that.
I think
it should be with a name like that.
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of like a action horror type thing. Richard E. Grant's very good in it, from what I remember. It got a number of sequels of very reducing quality each time.
When I think of Warlock, why do I get this image of Highlander? Is there some kind of link between them, or is it just the era they were both made in?
I think it was like the British answer to Highlander, basically.
That would make sense, yeah. Okay. So anyway, that was top for 2 weeks. And then on the 9th of June came, quite simply, the worst film ever made in the history of the universe. And therefore, inevitably, Patrick Swayze was the star man in it. Or I should say, the late Patrick Swayze.
Can I buy you guys a drink? Guess not.
Patrick Swayze is
Dalton.
I thought you'd be bigger.
Opinions vary.
When he's around, anything can happen.
How does a guy like you end up a bouncer?
Just lucky, I guess.
And usually does.
If somebody gets in your face, I want you to be nice.
Don't be rude.
Ask him to walk, but be nice.
Help this gentleman to the door.
Until it's time to not be nice.
So says the fighting philosopher.
He may be hard to handle.
I keep talking, you're gonna go off thinking I'm a nice guy.
I know you're not a nice guy.
But he's easy to like.
What's the matter, Dalton? Don't you like women?
The worst I ever had was wonderful.
He's not what you'd expect.
I thought you'd be bigger.
But there's one thing you can count on. He's the best friend a good time ever had.
You guys tired?
Doc, I'll get all the sleep I need when I'm dead. This is my town.
I'm not afraid of him.
I guess you'll be having that fire sale now, all right?
You got your hands full, kid.
I just think I'm looking at a dead man.
Patrick Swayze.
For that line of work, I thought you'd be bigger.
Gee, I've never heard that before.
Roadhouse.
It is absolutely terrible, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, there is a sort of so bad it's good quality. The only time I could bring myself to watch it, I think it was about 1998. I went to work the next day, and my boss said to me, "Did you see that Swayze film last night?" It was hilariously bad.
What was that line? I used to guys like you in prison. So awful. And then he rips the guy's throat out. Roadhouse does have one major redeeming feature, though. It's not Roadhouse 2.
Hooray!
I want to take the chance, because we're not going to get a chance to talk about it for a while, but as we're talking about Patrick Swayze, I want to talk about Ghost, because Ghost is a brilliant film. It's a romantic comedy, it's a violent thriller, it's a horror movie. It has something for everyone. And everyone in it, without question, is perfectly cast.
Yes, I would agree with that. I've never really seen Whoopi Goldberg correctly cast in anything else before or since, and that includes the Star Trek role that she had. But this role was made for her in Ghost. The weird guy from Batman Returns with the strange eyes is also in there playing another ghost who teaches brilliant. Patrick Swayze. He's perfect for that. He should be in every horror movie that was ever made.
He's also in one of the best episodes of The X-Files as well, which is Humbug, the one with the circus sideshow.
Despite having an enormous crush on Gillian Anderson, I wasn't actually a regular follower of The X-Files. I can certainly see why he would fit in an episode of The X-Files. Those eyes are a gift for anybody who wants to play horror. What was his name? I think we should mention his name.
Vincent Schiavelli.
That's it, Vince Schiavelli. That's it. He should have been in so many more films. He really should. There were so many films he would have been perfect for.
So after Roadhouse, we have Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, directed by Tony Randall, starring Claire Higgins, Ashley Lawrence, and Kenneth Branagh. I didn't like Hellraiser, so I didn't bother with Hellraiser 2. I did see Hellraiser 3, and it is...
Odds are therefore not good that Hellraiser 2 is going to be the good apple, is it?
After Hellbound is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Indiana Jones is on the quest of a lifetime. But for some adventures, one Jones is not enough.
Dad? Junior? Don't call me that, please.
Follow me! I know the way! A race across 3 continents.
And in this sort of race, there's no silver medal for finishing second. Hang on, Dad, we're going in!
Into the homeland of the enemy.
Nazis. I hate these guys. Our situation has not improved.
In his search for the Holy Grail.
How dare you kiss me?
Are you crazy? Don't go between them!
Go between them! Are you crazy?
Where's my father? In the belly of that steel beast. Dad! Junior! You call this archaeology?
I think this is probably the best of the 3. I actually got to see Temple of Doom in the cinema, and I did enjoy it back then. Nowadays, I'm horrified by the Temple of Doom because it is so racist.
Oh, yeah.
It is so insulting to so many cultures, especially Indian cultures. It appalls me. The thing that I actually enjoyed it when I was a kid, but I didn't know any better then.
But despite that, I still like all 3 Indiana Jones films. All 3. There are only 3 Indiana Jones films.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with so many people, and I agree. They never made a 4th one.
Let's not leave it with a nasty taste in our mouths. Let's talk about The Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade isn't so bad. Isn't quite so bad. I'm not entirely happy with Alexis Sale's whitewashed portrayal of a Middle Eastern king, and also John Rhys-Davies is once again whitewashing the role of Salah, which is not good filmmaking. But I do enjoy the chemistry between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery.
It's much more of a buddy cop movie than the others.
Yeah, the portrayal of the Germans is still Nazi stereotype, which I think it really should have grown out of by this point, and didn't.
The whole point is that it was supposed to be like a 1930s adventure serial, and that's what they were like. The Nazis were the bad guys.
You could portray bad guys without them being caricatures, though.
To Steven Spielberg's credit, though, after doing Schindler's List, he then went on to say that he could not have Nazis as the bad guys in any more Indiana Jones films, because after Schindler's List, Nazis aren't funny anymore.
That is a sign of him learning the lesson, at least. But overall, I found that it portrayed Middle Eastern people much more positively, for one thing, and a lot less patronizingly by the standards at the time. And the female characters in it are a good deal more assertive and a good deal less whiny than Willie was in the second. The adventure is, there's a bigger sense of scale to the whole thing, and it feels like a bigger world than the first two films.
Yeah.
I think that if they carried on in that vein, they might even consider making a fourth film, which of course they haven't done yet.
Oh God, can you imagine if they did? It might have like aliens in it or something.
As long as it doesn't have Russian stereotypes, yeah. I'm sure they wouldn't resort to using KGB caricatures or anything ridiculous like, say, a CGI Jeep landing on the top of a tree and the CGI tree very, very gently putting them down next to a river.
Oh God, if they were going to do that, they might as well do CGI gophers and monkeys.
Thank goodness nobody's ever done that, though, eh?
Next up, we have License to Kill, directed by John Glenn and starring Timothy Dalton as James Bond 007, with Carrie Lau and Robert Davi.
I don't like Bond films at all.
This film is unfairly maligned.
Is it a Bond film?
It is a Bond film.
Right, it's fairly maligned then.
If you don't like Bond films, it's not going to change your mind, but this is considered one of the lesser ones, and I don't think that's right. I think it was ahead of its time. It's the darkness and the grittiness of the recent Bond films, but the problem was it followed directly from Roger Moore. People just weren't ready.
I think that one comment I can make is that going from Roger Moore, who especially by the late 80s was basically performing half asleep all the time, to Timothy Dalton, who was one of the most underappreciated overactors of the 60s and 70s. That is bound to cause a wild contrast and quite a shock to regular Bond film viewers. Timothy Dalton basically was always performing heart on his sleeve. When you consider that Roger Moore was getting old and was really getting very tired by the mid-80s, probably, you are going from night to day there.
You want to talk about old and tired? Next we have The Karate Kid Part 3.
Here you are. Where'd you go?
I had to go think about some things.
And
I've decided not to defend my title. Look, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. I mean, you've been great. I just, when I hit that guy, that's just not me. I just wanted to come here and tell you in person because I figure after everything I owed you at least that.
You owe me a lot more than that, Danny boy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the lessons were for free, but
No. Nothing's for free. You are going to defend. You're getting in that ring.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Silver. You can't make me do something I don't want to do.
Danny. From the moment you met me, I've been making you do things you didn't want to do.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about?
Yeah, what?
Let's show him what I'm talking about.
What he's talking about, Daddy.
We have an agenda here, Daniel. It's really very simple.
You guys are crazy.
Either you fight one fight on one day, or you fight every day for the rest of your life. What's it going to be, Danny boy?
It's going to be, I'm not going to be there, so just forget about it, all right?
Let's show Mr. Kreese how he's going to get his business back.
Hey, I'm not going to fight. You can't make me fight.
You don't have to. You can just stand there and let him kick your ass.
Literal cardboard cutout villains actually hiding behind cardboard cutouts of themselves. Having said that, I'm really looking forward to the next series of Cobra Kai. Directed by John G. Avildsen, starring Ralph Macchio, Pat Morita, and Robin Lively.
Yeah, the usual suspects, plus yet another completely superfluous eye candy chick. The first Karate Kid film is okay. It is very, very 80s. The Karate Kid films are basically just 80s sports films, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's all about somebody who's taking part in a competition, really, really out of his depth a lot of the time. Finds a trainer who can, or a coach who can teach him the tricks, and then he comes out on top at the end of the film. You know, it's the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, but for karate. That's all.
Yeah.
Why the hell they thought they could get 2 more films out of it, I don't know.
It shares something in common with Ghostbusters in that the TV series is better than any of the sequels. The remake's not bad, you know. The one gripe I have with the remake is that there's no karate in it.
A bit of an oversight, I will agree.
Shall we cheer ourselves up by talking about the next film?
On the 11th of August, hitting the top of the charts was...
Batman, yes, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, and Kim Basinger. Michael Keaton did a great job for someone who can't turn his head.
We could do a podcast about this film on its own, and it would probably last longer than these reviews. Batman, it has been superseded by a lot of the stuff that's followed, but by standards of what was available for Batman at the end of the 80s, this was the bee's knees.
It revolutionized.
It counter-revolutionized.
Yes.
If you go back to the 1960s TV series, which was what everybody thought about when you mentioned Batman at the time, everybody was thinking about captions appearing on the screen describing the impact when there was a fight and things like that, and incredibly camped, silly dialogue from Adam West and Burt Ward. That came about in the 1960s, partly because the Comic Code Authority was set up in America in the 1950s, and that basically spent its entire time telling the comic makers you're not allowed to have anything with any balls in it. So without being able to be dark and really dramatic, comic writers instead switched over to being cartoonish and comedic. And so that dominated the 50s and 60s. That meant that the Batman that everybody remembers in the 70s and when we were growing up in the 80s was, as I say, Adam West's incarnation, full of silliness and gargantuan props and ridiculous one-liners. But if you actually go back and read the original Batman comics, they were actually very, very dark indeed. They're one of the reasons why the Comics Code Authority was set up, because people thought it wasn't appropriate for children to read them.
But they were never meant for children.
No, they weren't. That's the thing. A lot of the times it was children who were buying them. But that was the tone that Tim Burton wanted to bring back. With The Dark Knight Returns comic book being released in the mid-80s.
One of the greatest comic books ever released.
Again, in its time, I think looking back on it now, there's all sorts of things about it that aren't actually that good about the Dark Knight Returns. You didn't have to, it's actually a plotless story. Is the main problem with it, but it's a wonderful vision, and it was that reminded everybody of what Batman could be if it was being done the way it was originally intended to be done. And that was what Tim Burton wanted to reproduce. And so when he took over, he wanted to bring back that gothic feel. It still had this slightly otherworldly, slightly surreal quality to it, that slightly kitschy feel, but it was also full of darkness. And Batman, he may be a hero, but there's something really unpleasant about him. That was what they wanted to maintain. And he's not about justice. He's actually about revenge. I remember in 1988, when the news came through that Michael Keaton was being cast in the role, there was enormous controversy because the fans all thought, oh no, that means they're going to make another 1960s Batman with a comedy actor playing the role. But actually, Keaton played the role as dark as anybody has ever played it, and really turned him into something on the brink of being a psychopath. One of the great things about the casting in this film is that you also got a straight actor, Jack Nicholson, basically playing a complete clown who kills people almost to catch you by surprise after he's done something really silly and childish.
It was reported that their original plan was going to be to have Robin Williams as the Joker, but what they actually did was they offered Williams the role just so they could get Jack Nicholson. And that was really
Oh, it's shitty, but at the same time, it's clever, you have to say. It's a very clever bit of brinkmanship where you basically say, oh, well, it's all right if you don't want the role, Jack. We've got Robin Williams. He's expressed interest. So we'll go and talk to him. Oh, no. Come back. Okay, I'll sign. It's a horrible thing to do, but the truth is actors are used to it.
I do think that Robin Williams would have been very, very interesting as the Joker, though. Have you ever seen his film 1 Hour Photo, where he goes proper dark and scary?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt he would be compatible with the role. Interestingly, he was originally, before Tim Burton was kicked upstairs, he was actually going to be the Riddler in Batman Forever as well.
And he would have been great in that as well.
I think he would have been better in that than as a Joker. I think he would have been absolutely ideal to play the Riddler. But unfortunately, once again, Warner Brothers basically stabbed him in the back.
Yeah.
In fact, they stabbed the entire original cast of Batman Forever in the back. Keaton was originally going to be in it before he dropped out. Tracy Russo was going to play the love interest. Marlon Wayans was going to play Robin. And of course, Billy D. Williams, who was in the original film, was going to return as Harvey Dent to play Two-Face. He got kicked out as well. It wasn't just Robin Williams being treated that way.
Billy D. Williams did get to come back as Two-Face, albeit in the Lego incarnation.
I think that was a deliberate in-joke, that, just to wave two fingers at Joel Schumacher.
And I have to say, the Lego Batman movie is one of the best Batman movies.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. It is taking the piss, and I have to withhold my approval to the point of saying it's one of the best ever, but it is hilarious. It is very funny.
I genuinely want to see Condiments Man in an actual Batman movie, though.
So do I.
Do you know what? I know you haven't seen it, but Polka Dot Man is in the new Suicide Squad movie, and he's one of the most tragic characters that I've seen in a long time, and he's brilliant. We're getting pretty close to our cut-off point now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's only a couple after this.
You want to carry on?
But things I should say. There's more to say about Batman. I think it has been superseded partly by brilliant, though Jack Nicholson is as the Joker. He was an inspired choice as the Joker. I do think he's been superseded by Mark Hamill in the cartoon series. The sheer incredible energy that Mark Hamill puts into the cartoon Joker takes your breath away. I also have to say my favourite live-action Joker is Heath Ledger.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
When I first saw The Dark Knight in the cinema, I was thrown backwards out of my seat. I was so blown away by his performance. It was incredible. I heard so many doubts about Heath Ledger when he was going to be cast from so many people, but when I saw it, I was like, that is the Joker. I'm sorry, Jack Nicholson, you've been superseded.
I've only seen The Dark Knight once, but it has stuck in my mind ever since.
Oh, yes. I have it on DVD, and I watch it. I try to watch it every month just to keep watching Heath Ledger's performance. But I still appreciate Jack Nicholson's performance here. Another thing I think has to be said about Tim Burton's Batman, it has dated quite badly. Kim Basinger, she was cast at very short notice as Vicky Vale. It was only about a week before filming began that she was given the role because the previous actress had dropped out. I think Vicky Vale, I don't blame Basinger particularly. The role is definitely another screeching female stereotype of the Willie from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom tradition, unfortunately. Just there's an awful lot of suggestive sounding squealing noises throughout. I also think it has to be said that it's rather a slow paced film. There are times when it does start to, you're going like this. Oh, come on, get on with it. But there's also some tremendous iconic things that's given to Batman folklore that nowadays you can't really imagine a series without, and it was definitely a standout moment for 1989. It only stayed there for 2 weeks. That's a bit of a surprise.
We're coming up to the cut-off point for our timeline now, and the last film before we get into the series proper is Richard Donner's Lethal Weapon 2, starring Mel Gibson, Danny Glover and Joe Pesci.
Who is it?
Police, open up.
How do I know you're the police?
After I shoot you through the door, you can examine the bullet. Open up.
I don't think I've seen it.
I don't think it's worth seeing it. It's the same as Lethal Weapon 1.
Danny Glover at this stage was already getting too old for this.
And Mel Gibson was already too much of a racist anti-Semite to really be worth the fame and fortune you get. Lethal Weapon 2 is just Lethal Weapon 1 done all over again.
Okay, and we've reached the end of our timeline. That's the last movie. We have no more songs. So what's left to say now is that you can follow us on Twitter. We're at Nightmare Pod.
If you want to support the podcast, we're Nightmare Pod on Patreon and Coffee.
Speaking of Patreon, here's a shout out to Keeper of the Book of Quests, David N. Rabbit.
Advisors, Benjamin Bloom, Peter Paulsford, Peter Sidorn, and Stuart Leveland. I think I've heard of him.
And Dungeoneers, Peter Corridge and David Thompson. Hang on, wasn't Stuart Leveland the foreman of the jury in our trial?
Yes, our trial.
Are you sure that's...
I understand it's possible for people to listen in on that.
Yeah. Maybe even if they became Patreon supporters, they might be able to get a little bit more insight into things.
I think you're right.
Such as what it's like to be a Dungeoneer. Maybe we might even have a conversation with Jason, Carl and Anthony Haig. You never know.
Well, that's entirely possible. Apparently they were at our trial as well.
So anyway, yes, we got Dungeoneers Peter Corridge and David Thompson.
Support us on Patreon at Dungeoneer level or above to get your name mentioned on the podcast.
Our website is nightmarepod.co.uk.
And if you're looking for temporal discussion merchandise, including this rather natty t-shirt that I'm wearing right here, or stickers and other products, it's at nightmarepod.redbubble.com.
You can email us at podcast@nightmarepod.co.uk.
And before we go, we'd like to give an extra special thanks to Alan Boyd, Keith MacDonald, David Goldstein, Chris Ballard, Robin Barlow, Nicholas Lamb, and everybody else who's ever had a hand in making Nightmare.com and its related sites the fountain of information they are.
And just keep telling yourself, it's only a podcast.
Isn't it?
Coming soon on Temporal Discussion.
By the powers of truth and light, by the recording light shining bright, for nightmare they ardor, Odoni and harder, as temporal discussion once more stands aright.